Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maple Syrup episode. I'm not sure which one, number 45, I think. What I always do when I upload the no, you guys can continue the conversation in a second because I'm gonna tell everyone on the Zoom that I have to go downstairs and get coffee from Monica's. I will keep supporting Monica's no matter what. No matter what the haters say, I'm gonna keep supporting Monica's.
What do you mean the haters? There's no haters.
There's so much hate, so much like detraction, like so many celebrities saying, I'm just faithful to Starbucks, things like that. I'm gonna keep supporting Monica's. I'm gonna keep supporting Monica's. But I just want to say before we start, I have to get coffee. Just welcome to our next episode. We are discussing Cicero today. We're gonna do like biographical info on him and contextualize him in the time of the Roman Republic. The book that I have, Marcus Tullius Cicero on Duties, translated by a guy named Walter Miller, an excellent American name. I can tell that guy probably knew what a V8 engine was, and he probably knew how to farm, That's gonna be next class. If anyone's interested in just the super primary stuff from Cicero, that's next class. But I'm getting my coffee, be right back with you. 3 seconds.
Father, I got you a laugh. This is great. Father, oh man, Father, you're the nicest guy, you're the most amazing personality. I can't believe I got you a laugh. I guess you feel very good. So that feels fantastic.
All right, so pictures, this bullshit was fast yesterday. I'm just like, did you give them a good turn? I love sure. Had a lot of our friends over, but I'm taking a call.
So, Father, I think last time you closed the class with prayer. I think I'll ask you to do that again if you're okay. Or would you prefer now? What would you rather do? I want to definitely get a prayer in today. Would you rather start with the class with prayer?
But is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess. Let's close with prayer. Let's close at the end. I like that. That was awesome. Father, take us out. Save the best for last. Okay, guys. So I have posters for you. If anyone get my email, I sent an email on Vandal Catholic Intellect. I'm on the campaign trail.
This was advertising for.
Yeah, so my Hippo lecture is a week from today. Tonight is a great thing. I encourage also a lot of you to attend, especially people like Ryan Alexander, the youth. Focus is having some kind of etiquette ball where young men and women are supposed to dress up, and it sounds very cool. I thought about you and John Sr. in the Kansas program, like the stargazing and all this kind of stuff. They're having some kind of etiquette thing. Apparently one young woman went home to buy a dress for this. Very cool. She's taking it very seriously. Yeah, very nice. So tonight's that focus ball. My thing is a week from today. Guys, is serious the opposite of funny? Kristen, what do you think? Is serious the opposite of funny?
Is what?
Is serious the opposite of funny?
Yeah, I was taking that.
So you guys are very smart. Exactly. What is the opposite of funny?
Sad.
Nope. What is the opposite of funny? Anyone? Not funny. Exactly. The opposite of funny is not funny. The opposite of serious is not serious. Yes. Hey, this is a logic class. Let's start with a logical proposition. No, the literal, the kind of like on the nose opposite of funny is not funny. My talk called The Tyranny of Relativism is going to be very funny, I hope, but also very serious. I do not want anyone getting the wrong idea. Sam, I love that you walked by. It's so epic. As somebody like this guy, this is like what he just did. First of all, I love it. It's awesome. Is literally like going behind the counter with the barista. It's like while they're making your coffee, I'm just gonna stand back there. It's awesome. Sam, that was that's an example of that was very funny and also very like philosophical. It was great.
I bet it gets low.
That was awesome. Plus, I liked like the head, the touch to the head is just classic. It was awesome. It was like grandfather style. It was awesome. My talk, The Tyranny of Relativism, which I'm going to promote for like, I don't know, 30 seconds right now, but it's going to be funny. It's going to be very goofy. I sent, again, the email I'm asking for, I sent an email to Vandal Catholic Intellect from the Vandal Flock now. Anyone see that? And I explain in there, all of you know the Vandal Catholic intellect does 4 things, and 3 of them are kind of, I would say, just like very serious. Like, this class is serious. We learn stuff every class. We have a lot of fun, but it's like, but no, it's content based, right? If you go back and review all of our maple syrups, every class you learn 5, 10, 15 things. You learn a lot. The AMAs that I do with Father Chase are very sincere. They're ministry time. You know, people that have come, students ask questions, and especially, you know, God bless Father. We're so lucky to have him. Him and I together field these questions. It's very serious. Spirit and Life is very serious. Hippo lecture is theater, right? And so some people might be tempted to say, oh, this is kind of not serious. Well, no, it's funny, it's absurd, but it's very serious. Pope Benedict XVI, I'm gonna, in that Hippo lecture next Wednesday, I'm gonna open up with his quote. It was from 2005 or 6 or 7, early years of his papacy. And he said, we live in the tyranny of relativism. Anyone disagree? I don't think so. We have a relative society. There is no truth, your truth, my truth. I could give a very serious lecture on this. In fact, I have. I once gave a lecture on this at the University of Mary. I was invited for like a job thing and talked about relativism in a very boring way, right? Great. You can tell how I feel about this. It's just like slide after slide. Awesome. That's fine, but that's dry and whatever. Spirit and Life, things like that are purposely dry in a certain sense. Just the info. This is not. I think instead of giving you a dry lecture, it's more fun to, it says here, a stream of consciousness polemic musical. I think that's more fun to get at these things in that way. So it's going to be very, very serious. It's going to be one guy who just goes start to finish from first person. My friend says, is going to address all of these relative problems. The hero of the story is a guy named Albert, who's his friend, who keeps telling him, why don't you go to mass? And he goes like, I talked to Albert again. He told me I need to go to mass and read the Bible. And he keeps saying, the guy's an atheist. He's like, no. He's kind of swamped in this. So I'm going to pass these posters out. If anyone wants more posters for next week, I'm happy to print them out. Did you guys see what the critics are saying about this? So on the top, listen, we got to do a pre-screening. Top, it says, if you don't attend, you're an idiot. Anonymous Vatican insider. Carmelita Williams says, I got front row tickets for $900. I consider that a steal, worth every penny. And then at the bottom, there's a long endorsement. I couldn't believe it himself. It's from His Holiness, Pope Francis. So I'm going to pass these around. I want to keep them. All right, so welcome. Time for all business. Betsy, I'm counting on you as the official ambassador to the new St. Andrews people to get at least 30 of them to come for the talk.
Does that mean that you take one of those?
Tape it up. Can you tape it up in Doug Wilson's personal studio, like his like office? Post it on the door. That's fine. Whatever you want. Tell Doug Wilson to come. Tell Doug Wilson to come. Doug Wilson, I respect Doug Wilson. I'm serious. I'm not even mean, so there's no like punchline joke. I respect him. I totally disagree with him on a lot of theological issues, obviously. Who doesn't as a Catholic? But what I mean is, like, I respect him. Like, he's a guy who seems to have a sense of humor. I read his blog before. I think it's called like Gog and Magog or something like that.
Blog and Magog.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, that in itself is funny. He has this kind of Chestertonian wit. Get those people to come. I'm very grateful. I say this a million times. I am so grateful to the core of people that come to the Hippos, the 35, 40, whatever, the Sam Creslins of the world. They're kind of, the Schmitz, of course. I can't say enough about them before it gets like gross and like, you guys are the best, I love you, I'm very grateful to the people, but I want more people to come. People need to hear this talk.
Maybe I can get Mark to give one of these to one of his friends.
Yeah, good. And Betsy, if you want, on Monday, I'm going to come. The talk is next Wednesday. I'm going to come with like 40 posters, if anyone wants. But Barb, can you believe what the endorsements are saying? It's only $900 to get feet too. It's pretty good. All right, let's get down to business, guys. Kristen's like, why did I come here for this kind of nonsense? I'm ready for the class. She's saying, I can tell she's denied now. She's like, I'm ready for this class. I'm
looking at the paper so that there was enough.
That is so kind of you.
So I'm just trying.
Kristen, like how you just showed me, like, how do I say I care without saying anything? That was awesome. Thank you so much. That was very, very kind, very nice of you. Okay, let's get started, guys. Father, he's like, when do we get this class started? He's thinking, I laughed before, now I'm ready for serious stuff. Okay, I'm ready too. I'm ready for serious stuff myself, guys. So I have 4 things to say about Cicero in the beginning. I have 7 pages. Everyone ready to buckle in? This is Cicero part number 1. What have we finished? What have we finished to date? We have finished logic at the foundation of the world. We finished logical, the kind of nuts and bolts of logic, the mathematics, the geometry, whatever of logic. Kristen, please email me. This is a serious point. I invented this kind of algorithm for this class called Plumber's Logic. And exactly, I'm being purposely pretentious. Like I invented this scientific breakthrough. But I have a sheet, and Betsy Johnson was kind enough to clean it up because when I photographed it, there was some shadow on it. She made it very nice. I can send this to you. It is because the first 3 classes, you said you saw some of the old episodes. Anyone who wants to, who's watching online, who wants to revisit the first 3 classes, those are unlike anything else we're doing the rest of the semester. We're just talking about textual analysis now. Those first 3 classes talk about what is a red herring fallacy and straw man, what is a syllogism, all those things. And so we've covered that, and we've covered so far really the Greeks, right? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. This class is logic. Do you, if you got to raise your hand, you're like, I have a thought. So I'm going to assume this class being logic, you, Groshin, have assigned people like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle because reading them will get a logical perspective on everyday life. Yeah, I think so. Last class was very good in that way. Remember, it was like eudaimonia is the point of life. Logos is that operating system by which you arete things, right? That you, if you have logos, right, reason, rationality, and you use arete, the kind of virtue, the excellence in virtue, you will attain eudaimonia and become the best version of yourself. Those are very logical things. Cicero is a super, even boring style logical guy. Cicero would not come to my tyranny of relativism talk to his loss, but he would come to my spirit in life. Cicero himself, and we'll talk about in a second, is like, I'm not inventing anything new. I'm just trying to perfect the art of rhetoric, oratory skills, and conveying timeless truths. He is, I think, the most logical of all the Roman thinkers, so to speak. I mean, even way more appropriate for our class is logic than, let's say, Virgil, who wrote the Aeneid, the kind of Roman Homer, right? Okay, the dates of Cicero's life. Because today's class is Cicero's biography and some basic stuff. Next class is just me. I can't wait for this, actually, just reading all my notes from On Duties, one of his most famous works. All right. The dates of Cicero's life, 106 to 43 BC. What happens in 44 BC?
Well, it's until 43, you say.
Cicero lives from 106 to 43 BC. What is 44 BC? Roman history.
That one gets, didn't he get beheaded?
Someone gets killed,
Oh,
not
Caesar.
him. Yeah.
Okay.
The Ides of March, March 15th, 44 BC. You know, you also Brutus, A2 Brutus, right? And
That
then
also must be pretty close to the conception of Mary.
yeah, you would say so, right? Especially right, our Lord, and just the actual demarcation line of year 0. Speaking of biblical stuff, Cicero dies in 43 BC, Caesar the year before. 12 years after Cicero dies in 31 BC is the famous Battle of Actium, by which Octavian, the nephew of Caesar, defeats a coalition led by Mark Antony and Cleopatra and ushers in the Roman Empire. The next Caesar, after Octavian becomes the first Caesar, Augustus Caesar, his successor, Tiberius Caesar, is the Caesar of the Bible, of the census, Luke chapter 1, all that. So like this is, we're getting to biblical times. Cicero, just let's get right to cut to the chase. Cicero is beloved by Americans because he's considered like a rock-ribbed Democrat, a Republican. I don't have to explain this. I'm not talking about parties, but I mean, he's all about, you know, the voice of the people and logic and reason, and especially this. Number one, even more so than that, more so than his defense of republicanism and kind of democratic procedural stuff, even if he has a more constricted view than we might have, and just like for his elite class, he's very elite. I'll give you his biography soon. He's very much of the upper crust. He's anti-tyranny. Cicero, throughout his life, refuses to join forces with people like Caesar, Pompey, Crassus at point, I think at one point, Mark Antony. These guys, they want, Cicero is basically the superstar speaker of his time, the oratorical legend, the kind of most famous guy. I'm not trying to be sarcastic here, but like if someone, and I have no comment on someone like Ben Shapiro. I have no comment. I want to be totally neutral in this class. Ben Shapiro, a very famous conservative commentator, right? Like Matt Walsh, this guy's from the Daily Wire. No comment. They're great. They're awful. You tell me. I have no comment. I have no comment about President Biden's State of the Union address last night. I watched almost all of it. I have no comment. I'm not going to comment about politics, except when I want to. That's not logical. Pat says that's the opposite of logic. That doesn't sound like a rule. Well, Pat, you're right. You're right. Okay, I apologize.
It's true, it's just not helpful.
True, it's not helpful. Yeah, exactly. Very good. That's well put.
What year did you say Octavius defeated Mark Antony?
31 BC. That's 12 years after Cicero's death.
Right, okay.
Imagine Cicero is like Ben Shapiro, Or imagine Cicero's like Don Lemon, I don't know, the CNN anchor, whoever, who's kind of famous political figure, but not a senator, not a representative. And so people are always trying to get him to join our cause. I want Ben Shapiro to support my cause. I want Don Lemon, Anderson Cooper, a famous journalist, like I want his stamp of approval. Cicero refuses to give his stamp of approval time and again to tyranny. That's why Americans love him. That's it. Okay, Cicero, ready for his philosophy, guys? Because remember, in all of these, Kristen, here's the algorithm. In the plumber's logic, I have two nodes. And the first thing I list is just A, kind of A, B, C, D. A is like, when looking at, you apply this to any kind of statement. Virtue is the highest point of mankind. Okay, that'd be a statement. We apply this algorithm to it. We ask first A, does it have any religious significance? Because if it does, I guess Christians, of course, we accept on faith the inerrant word of God, the Bible. Well, that's of course gonna, that's gonna, we might even be admitting we're going past rationality. John Paul II, faith and reason, like maybe we're in the realm of faith. But if we cancel out A and say it's not in the realm of faith, the next thing I have in there is B4. And B symbolizes just the plumbers, the blue collar worker, just does this make sense? If I tell a plumber, hey, does 5 + 5 10? They'd be like, get out of my face. I'm trying to fix the pipes. Like, of course it is. I see it 5 + 10. It's plain logic. But if we can't determine that something is true, like virtue is the point of mankind immediately, then we have to go through all this list of different fallacies, etc., and contextualizing until finally we arrive at the end where we've done all that. We've said, is it religious or not? And if it is religious, often you stop there, but it's not. You go through this whole process. And 3 times you ask the 5 + 5 is 10 question. And at one point you got to say, well, is this logical or not? And I list in that algorithm, there's 10, 20, up to 30 fallacies we covered in the first couple classes. So as I read all this, I want you just thinking in your head, 5 + 5 is 10. Is that what you'll hear today? Does it make sense in a very plumber's logic way? That's what this class is, the blue collar worker. So, Cicero, 4 things before I go into his biography. Number 1. Okay, number 1 thing, Cicero's philosophy is logical. I think it's very logical, but who cares what I think? You tell me. Cicero insists on definitions. In De Officiis, we're going to talk about on duties next class. He insists on definitional, I don't know if that's a word. I made it up. It sounds good. Definitional clarity, but if you're like, that's not grammatically correct, clarity of definitions. He insists on definitions. And he says, guys, within this point number 1, there are 4 irrational emotions. Again, Barb, 5 + 5 is 10, yes or no? Like, does this make sense what he's saying? And again, I'm asking like rhetorically, like you don't have to answer. You can if you want, oh, it's your class. But I'm saying like, I'm not looking for answers, just think about it. Does this make sense? He says there's 4 irrational emotions. Number 1, pleasure, which is reaction to a present good. Number 2, desire, outreaching to a future good. Fear, outreaching to a future evil. And distress, which is reaction to a present evil. What do you guys think? Because there's 4 irrational emotions in mankind: pleasure, desire, fear, distress. And this will cloud our logic, right? If Dave Schmidt is just always afraid of something coming down the road, and let's say Dave Schmidt is transportation secretary, he's afraid of earthquakes. God rest those people's souls, poor people in Turkey and Syria, and like it's a constant question of the San Andreas fault. If Dave Schmidt is in charge of California transportation, but he's like, the big one's coming, he's obsessed with fear, that will cloud his judgment. Does that not make sense? Right? He probably can't, Kristen, who's governor of California, can't rely on him to give an accurate report because he's just so terrified. It's pretty logical and good, I think, right? Second, so number 1 was definitions, and there's 4 subcategories there. It's A through D. Let me review one more time. Number 1, he insists on definitions, and there's 4 rational desires. In order, once more: pleasure, desire, fear, distress. I am distressed at the idea that President Biden one day will not be president anymore.
That's fear, not distress.
That's fear, sorry. Like our most left-leaning friends were racked with fear and distress at the potential of President Trump not being ex-President Trump again, but right? You know people like this, vice versa. Okay. Second, Cicero insists on the method of the dialectic. Here's what he says: I have always approved the academic and peripatetic. What is that? What is the academic and the peripatetic? You're thinking now, Gratian, you're the legend, you're the man. I love you. Thank you. Because you did this in order. We discussed this. Who founded the academy? Right. And who founded the peripatetic school, the walking around school? Yeah. So he's saying here, I approve both of Plato and Aristotle. Academic, Plato, peripatetic, Aristotelian. Freaking sweet, right? This is tight. This is like tightly wound. I have always approved the academic and peripatetic practice of presenting every subject in the form of a debate. Partly because it is the only way of reaching the most probable conclusion. Remember our arguments, right? Cogent arguments, valid, probability. On any particular topic, partly because it is good rhetorical practice. Guys, oh man, class over, star that. He is considered an amazing master of rhetoric. His oratorical skills are insane. Cicero is an incredible writer and then presenter. Cicero should do the Hippo lectures. If he was here, I take it back. I say, would be interested. He'd do them better than me, way better than me. And I'd be like, Cicero, bro. I'd be like Brock Yick. Remember, see the ad he gave there? He's the Greek life ambassador. He's like, bro, dog, I had no idea he'd do it. He did, bro. That's what I say to Cicero in terms of like being awed at his talent. So once more, now that we know he's talking about Aristotle, Plato, debate, and that, it's not just good for logical deduction, deductive reasoning, but it also is great rhetorical practice. Here's the quote with no interjections from me, just Cicero's words. I have always approved the academic and peripatetic practice of presenting every subject in the form of debate, partly because it is the only way of reaching the most probable conclusion on any particular topic, partly because it is good rhetorical practice. End quote. The sole object of our discussions, he says, is by arguing on both sides to draw out and give shape to some conclusion, which may be either true or the nearest possible approximation to the truth. That is logic 101, right? Okay. Number three, he says the function as a philosopher is simply the plain examination and criticism of what philosophers have actually said. It's very cool. Cicero is saying I'm a genius when it comes to rhetoric and oratory. I'm not an original philosopher. That's very Roman of him. Roman mythology was just plagiarized off the Greeks. He's saying, I like the academic and peripatetic schools. I respect the Greeks. I'm not trying to make up a new philosophy. My job is to, in plain language, that sounds a lot like what, Barb? Plain language, simplicity. It sounds a lot like he's giving big shout out. There's a character of our class, Kristen, called Big Teddy. He's the plumber. He's the imaginary, hypothetical plumber of our class. He's given mad love.
Could you clarify peripatetic? I'm
Of
not
course.
clear on.
Absolutely. Please always ask these questions. Excellent question. Peripatetic means itinerant, means like mobile, walking around. It means walking around.
Yeah.
Remember, Plato was able to found the academy. He was a citizen of Athens. Aristotle was not. So by city bylaw, he was not allowed to found an academy. He's a foreigner. So the peripatetic school means it was often held in the forum in the open air. The only difference here is the academy is like, this is the academy. We meet every day in this room. Peripatetic means we meet in downtown Moscow. Sometimes it's East City Park, Friendship Square. We're kind of walking around.
Mhm.
The difference between Plato and Aristotle school are manifold, and like anyone who wants to see those again, revisit old videos. We spent hours talking those. But just here, exactly, peripatetic literally means walking around, mobile, not in one place. And it was Aristotle's necessity because he wasn't allowed to found an academy.
So Cicero's definition of a philosopher, I know that sounds like it should be taken for granted. That's really easy. That's really not. The modern world really disagrees. But I had a really big beef with my criminal law textbook last year. And this is relevant. One of the things it said about philosophy is that philosophers, this is almost verbatim, philosophers, of course, come up with their systems of thought from scratch, which is the exact opposite of what Cicero says. But this textbook writer just says it like it's a given. Like everybody would agree with it. That's the truth. Yeah. And so anyways, I just wanted to.
Ryan, just for the record, I'm not trying to be nice. You probably think I will be. Everything you say is relevant. You always have great comments. So you don't have to preface that it's always relevant. That's especially relevant. Yeah. That's a problem of hey, guys, let me pitch it again. Come to my tyranny of relativism. My character is like the textbook writer. He's like, nothing's real, nothing's true, whatever, man. So I don't care. I'm apathetic. I suck. Everything sucks. Like he's that kind of person. That's the problem of postmodernity in general. Like, no, they just make it up out of whole cloth. Who cares? Whatever. And if they don't, well, it doesn't even matter anyways. Like that kind of attitude. No, it's like Cicero is rock ribbed solid on almost like an intellectual paper trail. So once more, remember, number one, he insists on definitions. I gave you those 4 before. Second, the method of dialectic. 3, the function of philosopher is to present simply what the philosopher said. And here's point number 4, maybe most important. He births to Europe, some people say, per philosophical vocabulary. Cicero in his writing, in his work, one critic says it was an incomparable service. Plutarch says of him, the famous Plutarch, quote, he made it his business further to compose and translate dialogues on philosophy and to express in Latin the vocabulary of science and logic. It is said he was also the original or principal person to supply the Romans the words for fantasia, syncotheosis, epoche, catalepsis, as well as Adamon, Ameris, Kenon. He produced familiar and acceptable terms by the use of transference of language and other devices. And people even say later on that we owe to Cicero the kind of common philosophical and commonplace plumber's logic style use of words like quality, individual, vacuum, moral, property, induction, element, definition, difference, notion, comprehension, infinity, appetite, instance, science, images, species. Pretty freaking cool. He sounds like Trishman. It's kind of like polymathematical genius. This is amazing. It's an amazing, like kind of thing he's left on people. And final point in this point 0, before I get into some of the background, and you're probably like, this is already good stuff. I agree. Cicero being, some people say, the pioneer of Latin philosophy. And by Latin, of course, in de lingua latina, like the Latin language, but I mean, Roman philosophy, you could say as well. It's almost, same thing. He has 2 sections. Remember, going back to Plato, that education is musical and gymnastic, right? And musical is perhaps of the soul and gymnastic of the body, and the abstract Platonic forms of the academy with the peripatetic Aristotelian more kind of the earth. I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe it's like a wolf, like, gonna get you. Point number 1, the first distinction is where grammar, dialectics, and rhetoric are found. So in the left hand, let's say, it's one side, philosophy is divided into 2 sections, Cicero would say. In this box, this hand, grammar, dialectics, rhetoric. On the other hand, geometry, arithmetics, astronomy, music, medicine, architecture. So the more practical sciences, right? Like arithmetic, architecture, geometry over here, here's the more kind of abstract grammar, dialectics, rhetoric, that of the soul, right? Dang, Cicero's a boss. Dang, man. Apparently he could drink people under the table too. So that was cool. So people thought he was Russian, his love for vodka. Let's do some quick background, okay, guys? Cicero, remember, let's do some history. I'm a historian, right? That's, this, right? I hope.
So you're a historian?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I think I heard that.
Oh, good. Okay. Betsy, I would love to do a 2-person play with you on stage where it definitely involves a lot of violence in the form of you beating me up. And like, Betsy, let's go. Betsy, let's go. Like, imagine this thing. You're my mom, right? And I come home from college and you like just literally the play is you just beating me up the whole time. And I'm like, Betsy, go for it. And you're just like punching me on stage. People are like, is this real? And then later on I find it's real. And you and I both do this like a joint interview. It's like the local paper.
Where I had to pretend to be throttling somebody, so I can.
I would let you throttle me for real on stage. Yeah, no, but I would let you do it for real. Like let's method act this, Daniel Day-Lewis. I told you not to change your major. Your father and I are not paying for this. And I'll be like, oh, yes, mom, like that kind of thing. It'd be awesome.
You know, that's not how I treat my children, right?
Yes, for the record, I know that, but I want you to treat me that way on stage. Okay. Some background, guys. Let's be serious. Let's get serious, please. These stupid ideas, these plays, let's get back on topic. Come on. Cicero, again, is 106 to 43. There's a huge time of troubles in Rome. All right, leading up to Cicero's heyday. Let's talk about those like in 5 seconds. What happens between 264 and 146 BC in Rome? Anyone know? By the way, really quickly, the Roman Republic is founded in 509 BC.
All of the dictators of it.
That's you're getting to that. You're too far in the future. We're gonna get to Sulla in a second. Sulla is like the first like epic dictator, right? I remember listening to, again, this is not a comment on Trump. I have no comment on Trump, but some guy was just saying Trump is like the American Sulla. I was like, I don't know. And then he started describing it. I'm like, everything he says is right. like all the qualities and characteristics. And the question is like, do you like Sulla? Do you like Trump or not? And because Sulla's epitaph, like on his like, the thing he had inscribed on his gravestone was, never was there a better friend. I'm paraphrasing to mess it up. Sulla wrote, never did anyone have a better friend or a worse enemy, and I've paid them back in full. That's Trump. Trump holds endless grudges against people, right? And they're terrible. But he also, if Trump likes you, like it's great. Oh, my friend Betsy Johnson, oh, just amazing. You know, like buy her products. Like either like if I'm your friend, I pay you back in full, right, to the max. Ultimate loyalty. And actually, will say I'll step out of my neutrality. I do respect Trump's, even if it's misplaced, like sense of loyalty. Of like, like loyalty is a good characteristic. Sulla is exactly the same way. But if you cross Sulla / Trump, you'll be repaid in full as well. So,
Difference. Trump's loyalty is.
wait, let me stop you. There is no difference, I'm saying. They're exactly the same person. That's what I'm saying. Stop. There's no difference. I think I was thinking Trump and Sulla. Now that you mentioned Trump and you, I'm thinking, I kind of see that now. Go ahead.
Make it distinction between Cicero, not that we really need.
Not Cicero, Sulla, Trump and Sulla, not Trump. Trump is the anti-Cicero. Trump once said, like, I love the uneducated. Cicero would never say that.
But it's the second Punic War, right?
Yeah, the Punic Wars. Thank you for getting us back on topic, but I'm actually more thankful. You always do, but I'm more thankful for the correct answer. The Roman Republic is 509 BC. The Punic Wars are fought between Rome and Carthage, the city in northern Africa. And famously, there's 3 Punic Wars. The first one is 264 to 246. Gratian, 264 to 241. Gratian, how do you know this stuff? I know things, guys, is my answer. That's Punic War number 1. Punic War number 2 is 218 to 201 BC. What is this famous for? Hannibal crossing the Alps with elephants. Because that is freaking sick, right? That would have been a cool. You had to read about that in Latin? Cool. That's very cool.
Did you?
We had to translate all the,
That's not in Moses' text, right?
oh, I don't recall.
Latin,
Many years ago.
Well, it's still relevant. It's awesome. I would actually, if you have it, I'd love to borrow that book. That's awesome. The third Punic War, though, is 149 to 146, and the famous saying, right? Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. It is destroyed. It's salted to the ground. This is 146 BC, and the guy is Scipio Africanus who does this. And after that, though, a huge crisis happens. All right, there's a crisis in Rome from 134 BC, guys, until 44 BC, 90 years of crisis. And it starts with Bernie Sanders. I'm not even kidding. I'm being dead serious. The Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, they are these nobles who serve as tribunes, and they create this office called the Tribune of the People, and they just do the Bernie Sanders stuff. They want to do, what is Bernie Sanders probably most famous for? Of course, 99%. Like, if Bernie Sanders is not a socialist, but a communist, let's say, well, the Gracchi brothers want to do land reform. They want to take the land away from the rich, give to the poor, and it really is Bernie Sanders stuff, and they get executed for this. Shockingly, the rich oligarchs who run Rome were like, no, thank you. We're not interested in our land being redistributed. But it leads to this huge whirlpool of problems. We finally get to Sulla in the 80s. 80 BC, Sulla marches on Rome, which is seen like just unbelievable, like break of protocol. Julius Caesar, of course, will do this when he crosses the Rubicon in the 40s, 40 years later. But we don't have time for this, talking about Cicero, but just like FYI, the rivalry between Sulla and Marius, these guys going back and forth in the Popularis and Optimatus party, leads to eventually, in the 50s, the first triumvirate and then the second triumvirate and the eventual triumph of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar becoming, for all intents and purposes, dictator of Rome, becoming a better version of Sulla. In fact, I think Julius Caesar was known to Sulla, and Sulla was like a 70-year-old guy who had played in the NFL and was, just for the purpose of the analogy, like he was like all pro, and he knew of Caesar. I think the year was, there's like a 40-some year difference. He knew of Caesar, the kid who's up and coming, and Sulla apparently once said, like, this guy's crazy, we should probably kill him, but he's so great, I actually want to see what he does about Caesar. There's so many stories about Caesar. Apparently Caesar once was captured by pirates. I'd be probably pretty terrified, right? He was captured by pirates, Julius Caesar, and he tells them, he's like, yeah, when you guys let me out, I'm going to come back and kill you all. And they're like, he's like ingratiated themselves. And they, old boy, and they're playing cards. Like, no, he's like, I'm being serious, guys. When I come back, I'm going to kill you all. And totally having the huge, intestinal fortitude to say this to his captors, fine, then we'll kill you, right? They eventually ransom him off. He comes back and surprise, surprise, kills them all, right? He was that kind of guy. He's that intense. His wars in Gaul, Caesar writes this whole book about it. And basically the time is like, I am the man, I am a legend, I'm a boss. There was all these 30-foot tall Gaulish guys, and they had no match for me. By the way, I'm the man. Like, that was the whole story, right? Julius Caesar makes himself dictator in Rome. This is where the Cicero story will end. Cicero is eventually killed. Cicero is a martyr for democracy and anti-tyranny. That's the kind of background. And we're going to get into Cicero. Sam Preston, let's go for it. Yes.
Yeah, I heard that because he knew Sulla, he actually put "Make Rome Great Again" on his chariot.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. He did. Yeah. He actually got in the Roman Forum, he installed a bunch of gold toilets as an homage to Sulla. Yeah, exactly.
Because you're the historian.
It's just history, Sam. It's just, thank you. That just talking about facts here. Yeah. Yep, that's what happened. That's what, then he founded a rival social network called Sulla Social. Okay, Cicero was born in 106 BC to a financially well-off, albeit kind of non-prominent family in the provincial town of Arpigna, 60 miles from Rome. Cicero loves poetry and prose. He's a total nerd. He got a lot of swirlies in high school, got his head put into toilets by football players because he's a huge geek. Studied Greek, Latin, and oratory early in his life. He's in the army for a brief time, 89 BC. Oh, Groshin, thank you. That's the age of Sulla, right? Yeah, that's the age, time of trouble. It's not good. It's not time of peace. He's not in the army in peacetime. He's very much in this kind of, etc. He's in the army, but he considers himself a strict intellectual. Cicero, bless him. I say this with the deepest respect. If you haven't noticed yet, sorry, I love Cicero, right? Maybe I love this guy. I can't say enough good about him. I can't say anything bad about him. I love this guy. Cicero is a strict intellectual, a man of the mind. And what does he do for work? Remember, he studies Latin and Greek. He's into prose, poetry. He's a true like Renaissance man intellectual. What does he actually do for work? Anyone know? In the age of Sulla, the 80s BC, he's doing something. What is his job?
Lawyer?
He's a lawyer. Yeah. He's like what Ryan Alexander would be one day. And then Ryan, when you get to the Supreme Court, remember us. Render just decisions for us in Moscow. He's a lawyer. He's a practicing attorney. In 77 BC, he marries Terentia, this woman of money. Very wise on his part. You know, he's like, that's what he said. Kind of offensive to women. He's like, just marry me to the richest woman. He's like, I don't have time for women. I'm studying. Show me her cash. How much money she has? Fine, I don't care, whatever. He ascends really quickly. Remember, this guy is not like on the fringe of society, but he's from the country, right? He's not a country lawyer like this guy with, oh, it's cute, Lincoln with his top hat practicing law in Springfield. Like, but he is he's not blue blood Rome, right? But he moves pretty quickly. The point where in 67 BC, he has, at age 39, he has this position called praetor. And he attaches himself to this man of really rock stratospheric influence named who? Who does Cicero attach himself to? Who knows Roman history? 67 BC, he's becoming an important political figure. He attached himself to Pompey. Okay, when Pompey is a guy who also in the Sulla Wars was considered, wow, I almost knocked the computer over. My legs are longer than I thought. That's not a bad problem to have. That's great. He attached himself to Pompey. Pompey was a guy who I told you what these guys like Sulla thought about Caesar. Pompey was the true like superstar. I don't know. I can't think of an example, but like someone who at age 20 is like Fortune 500. Like he very early in his life, Pompey was considered this brilliant. Actually, the best example would be like Napoleon Bonaparte, like Alexander the Great. So Pompey's been a star for a long time. What is Cicero's most famous thing, though? It's not the most famous thing he ever does. Anyone know what he does in 63 BC? What does he do?
He uncovers the Catiline conspiracy, which he was,
Exactly. This guy Catiline wants to basically assassinate everyone in Rome, foment a coup. And he denounces these Catiline orations, where he puts to use his. Remember, Cicero is so famous for his rhetoric, his rhetorical skills. He denounces this conspiracy. Talk about guts too, right? Imagine if you uncovered a conspiracy in Washington involving Republicans and Democrats, and you denounced them on the Senate floor. You're probably asking to be Julius Caesar, right? Like that's not, but he's like calling everyone out. It works, overthrows the plan, and Cicero really starts establishing himself as we move. Remember, we're moving downwards. BC in the 50s is like the main Roman intellectual. This guy has proven it pragmatically two ways. Like about basic logic. Lawyers very much have to be in the logic. He's proven himself as a barrister, you could say. He's proven himself as a politician, but he really is this ultimate logical guy. In 54 BC, he begins work on his Republic. It's the same work as Plato, basically. It's a shout out to Plato. Remember, he liked Plato and Aristotle. Remember Plato, the soul of society are divided into 3 parts. But Cicero's big thing is that justice is absolute. That's the core argument of his Republic. Justice is, and we must work to make it absolute. He's denouncing Catalina, not because of perceived favors or lack of favors or whatever, but because, remember, this is why Americans love him. This is the most important thing I'll say today. Americans love him because of his like republicanism, anti-tyranny, but because of the very American cliche, no one is above the law. That represents Cicero. Cicero is virtuous. He's incorruptible in a certain sense. And that's his argument. Like a society will work. Remember, what was the argument of Aristotle's work on political theory? What's the point of the polis? Remember? What Aristotle? It's very logical. I think beauty, common good, beautiful acts, right? He's saying like, yeah, it's great, but common good will ultimately function with justice. Justice is the indispensable ingredient, he's saying. Sounds pretty logical to me. Cicero refuses to endorse Caesar near 48 BC after Caesar defeats Pompey. Caesar returns from his campaigns in 47 BC and pardons Cicero. Why? Because he's so awesome. It's like, why does Mel Gibson keep making movies despite all the terrible stuff he said? Because he's so famous, right? It's like a guy even once wrote a New York Times article, I think, that said, I am horrified by everything Mel Gibson stands for, but he is the greatest genius behind the camera. Some people are so talented that it's like they are beyond punishment. It's hilarious. The guy who's no one's above the law, he's above the law of public opinion. Like Cicero, you think would execute him for not supporting him, but he pardons him. He's still trying to win his support. And this goes all the way down to where Octavian and Mark Antony, the guys who eventually will go head to head, battle back to him, are begging him to, hey, join our side, because they finally have to execute him because he refuses to join them, and he is executed. He dies for his values. Another famous work that he wrote in 46 BC is called the Orator. Okay. Let's do some more background on Cicero. This is great. I think we've kind of established who this guy is pretty well, I think. Let's do some more background on him, and I actually want to finish with some quotes from De Officiis and ask our friend Big Teddy. Does this sound logical to you, my plumber friend? And I'm going to give you a kind of trailer, a tease for what's coming next class. But really quickly, we talked about Cicero. Let's talk about the culture he was born into. When he comes of age, before he's a lawyer, 80s BC, when he's studying, being super nerd, studying Greek and Latin and all this stuff, there are 4 schools that are influencing him. Ready? The oldest is the Academy. Number 2 is the Peripatetic School of Aristotle we talked about. There's also 2 other things. He mentioned the Academy, Plato and Aristotle, the Academy and the Peripatetic School. There's also Stoicism and Epicureanism. Epicurus regarded the end of life as pleasure, not crudely interpreted, but understood as freedom from disturbance. Okay, so these kind of philosophies are working their way into the cultural bloodstream, and maybe they're even called by different names. The most famous Stoic philosophers, who's the most famous Stoic? Everyone's heard of this guy. Marcus Aurelius. He's one of the 5 good emperors, not so good according to Christians. But he's one of the 5 good emperors, so to speak. He's like 180 AD. So he's like 200 years after Cicero almost. So and he's the most famous Stoic philosopher. But these schools are having some kind of influence on him. It's important to realize what Cicero was trying to do. It's a reading now from a philosophical argument about Cicero. I'm going to read you the whole chapter. Just listen. We've already covered, primarily learned one thing. We've covered like 40 things. I'm going to read this, then we're going to finish by reading some quotes from De Officiis. That which next class, that's all we're going to do. It is important to realize what Cicero was trying to do. He never claims originality, except in the last book, De Officiis. He admits that his works are derivative. Quote, I merely provide words and I have plenty of those. End quote. He is, however, I've got money. By the way, I'm loaded. Period. Like, wow, that was pretty pithy. That was to the point. He is, however, no slavish translator. He always brings a critical interpretive faculty to bear, as he himself claims. His aim is the introduction of philosophy to Rome. His aim is to bring these peripatetic, Platonic schools. Isn't this cool, right? All the stuff we learned in this logic class, building one on the other. Philosophy was to Cicero only a second best, but it was that. And with the decline of oratory, he was prepared to give an impulse to Roman philosophy. So he really is more performative. He's actually the biggest fan of the Hippo lectures. If anyone ever criticized my Hippo lecture, first of all, let me just like bring the button for expletives to them. Number one, but if anyone ever criticized my Hippo lectures, it's like I'm just being Cicero because I'm for performance, oratorical skill, plays. I'm gonna sing a parody of the song that the Cougars play in the football games. I'm gonna sing Mariah Carey and Edward McCain, all in this polemical musical, right? This is what Cicero would like, performing in the forum for people. Second best is philosophy. Wow, like, oh, let's just get a normal talk. 1 + 2 = 3 = this is so boring. He's like, you know what? With the decline of oratory, philosophy has place, and I want to bring that to the people. And remember, he's extremely well versed in both Greek philosophy and the Greek language itself. But I have to tell you, he's totally fluent in Greek. I hope not. I mean, obviously, right? There's no Google Translate this time. Truly, praise God. I'm not saying sarcastically. It encouraged people to work harder and attain the fruits of their labors, right?
One of his goals, I think, was to translate Aristotle. That's in your notes.
Yeah, right. Did he ever finish that? Do you know?
No, in fact, there seems to be a tendency of being in the classical world and trying to translate Aristotle and then getting killed.
Okay. Well, there's like a mummy kind of thing attached to it.
It's
You know,
like
it
they have
disturbs
the
you.
same Boethius.
Yeah. Is Boethius a saint for real?
It's debatable. Yeah, he was traditionally considered a martyr, but some people argue he's martyr.
Because you need like what, like an odium fide, right? Like for the exact, but like awesome. We're going to talk about Boethius and Augustine. Boethius writes the last work of classical antiquity philosophy, the consolation of philosophy, lady philosophy. We'll talk about Boethius a lot. I love Boethius. Ryan Alexander seems to love him more. He's already canonized him. So
He has a traditional cultist. I don't think he has a piece.
It's just in.
it's just it. Guys, are you going to tell me if Ryan Alexander didn't show up at the Vatican, people I'd listen to him? He's got a great presentation, super intelligent, well spoken. He's very Ciceronian, good speaker. I'd listen to him. If he wants to canonize Boethius, I mean, get Francis on the phone. By the way, yeah, guys, don't be jealous. I do text with Pope Francis every now and then, not always. We text sometimes. He likes to send emojis. He doesn't like to write things. He just writes, but they're like Argentinian. I don't get it. I don't get his concept. Like I asked him, like I told him, hey, PF, I call him PF for the abbreviation Pope Francis. I'm like, hey, PF, congrats on the huge win in the World Cup. So Argentina won. And he sent back unicorns and a picture of a house. Like a gingerbread. I don't understand what that means. You can ask him next time you see him. Okay, Betsy Johnson. Wow, that wasn't funny to you. Betsy, think about our play. You can take out all your anger on me. I will let you punch me in the face as hard as you want. That'd be great. Imagine my face was so rock solid, like you got hurt by punching me. I get the last line. All right. On duties.
May I?
Yeah.
I have to look that up. Ryan, and you're dead on. Boethius is considered a martyr for the Catholic faith and was canonized under the name Severus. So I didn't know that.
It's very cool.
I didn't know he was canonized under a different name. But
Guys, very, very, very awesome. Thank you both for that. Honestly, I'm being again, I know everything is like ... sarcasm, like sincerely thank you. That's awesome. Just to, kind of to whet your appetite for next class when all we're going to do is De Officiis. Here's some stuff, right? So Cicero, ready for this, said God is the only author of the law. Law is right reason and agreement with nature. All these guys, and of course, it's a Catholic center. Cicero is such a baller. He's so important. Like you can't ignore him. But like we can like him even more because he's one of these guys again that can be like a proto-Christian. So as I go through some of the stuff he says, think about two things: Plummer's logic algorithm. Is it like 5 + 5 = 10? And at the same time, do I see seeds of kind of Christian thought? He is not a Christian. He dies in 43 BC. He's not a Christian. He's not a Jew, right? He's not part of the old covenant either, right? He's outside of our whole deal, our whole Judeo-Christian tradition. But it's like he's so Christian at the same time. God is the only author of the law. And he's like, just like Socrates, remember? He's like, he doesn't believe in the kind of nonsense pantheon of the Roman Greek stuff. No, the one non-contingent being, God, is the only author of the law, and law is right reason and agreement with nature. That's the natural law. That's from his Republic.
But if I give him that much credit.
You don't think so?
I think he still participated in the pagan rituals, so more of like a traditional.
Sure, out of just like,
Just Burkean paganism.
yeah, exactly.
No,
This is good for social cohesion and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Right, he's certainly not perfect, but. Okay, here's his quotes. Then we're gonna be done. Brave he surely cannot be that counts pain the supreme evil, nor temperate that he holds pleasure to be the supreme good. It's very Christian. Let's just say you can't be holy if you think pain is the worst thing. Like, just die for your faith. God help you. Our blessed Lord and Savior Jesus Christ didn't worry about pain on the cross to win our salvation, right? And you can't be temperate if you're just all about getting wasted every single night. No, it's literally temperance is a cardinal virtue. So that's very Christian. Number two, we are not born, we do not live for ourselves alone. Our country, our friends have a share in us. No man has greater love than lay down his life for his neighbor. You know, what is the law and the prophets? After loving God above all, love your neighbor as yourself. You live for others. And it's like very patriot. Cicero is beloved too by Americans for his hyper patriotism. He was super patriotic towards Rome. Let us remember that justice must be observed even to the lowest. Very Christian. Whatsoever you did to the least of my people, you did unto me. You know that song, right? Let arms yield to toga, the laurel defer to praise. Blessed are the peacemakers. It is the function of justice not to do wrong to one's fellow men. Justice is the whole point. So, okay. Finally, is anyone aware that, actually last two, is anyone aware that fortune plays a major role in both success and failure? Don't get above your station, don't be cocky. Like if you're blessed, thank God. The greatest tragedy of the atheist when he succeeds and has no one to thank, right? Thank your lucky stars in a secular sense, but thank God. Finally, of evils choose the least. Classes over. Anyone know the Folgers theme song? Kristen, are you aware of that song? The Folgers song from the 90s?
That's part of waking up.
Yeah. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. Remember that? That was good stuff. That's intense. The best part of the Augustine Center is having Monicas downstairs. That's what I think. That's what I think. On that note, I'm ending class. Bye. See you all next Monday. Have a